Hey YouTube, this is Wrestle Amusement Park Fan 62. Here is the WrestleMania card for Saturday and Sunday, and I will do my predictions. Now, what we know first is on WrestleMania Saturday, Roman Reigns versus Seth Rollins versus CM Punk with Paul Heyman and Seth in Punk's corner will main event WrestleMania Saturday. So, if I had to guess in there, you're either going to get Roman or Punk. Right now, I'm going with Punk because this is his first official WrestleMania as a competitor, as last year he was injured due to what happened at the Rumble. So I think Triple H wants to give Punk his special moment at Mania because he's never main evented a WrestleMania. For the World Heavyweight title, you have Gunther versus Jey Uso. Now, this feud in particular has been very interesting because it went from being Jay versus Gunther to involving Jimmy and so on. So if you have Netflix, I would highly suggest go back a couple of weeks and look at the segment with Gunther and Jimmy Uso, because Jimmy got all bloodied and everything, and Gunther zip-tied Jay's hand to the ropes. So Jimmy was trying to reach out and grab his brother, and he couldn't, as Gunther was beating the crap out of Jimmy, and he was getting all bloody and everything. So if I had to guess at this point, I do think Jey Uso will become the new World Heavyweight Champion. For the WWE Women's Championship, we have Tiffany Stratton versus Charlotte Flair. Oh boy, where do I even begin with this? So, Charlotte Flair won the Women's Royal Rumble match for 2025. So, she went to Raw to visit the women's champ at the time, which I think was Rhea. And then she went to NXT to see Julia. And then she went to SmackDown to see Tiffany Stratton. Now, and so about a week or two later, she chose Tiffany Stratton. And from there, it's been back and forth on different things. But it really hasn't been to the last couple of weeks where it's really gotten more interesting, because 2 weeks ago, they had a segment on SmackDown where it got very personal regarding both Tiffany and Charlotte, where Tiffany was saying stuff like, after WrestleMania, you're going to be alone regarding her divorce to Andrade. And you're going to be, 0-3, and stuff like that. And then, so Charlotte was like, oh, is that why Tiffany's boyfriend's in her DMs and all that other stuff? So I would highly suggest you go look at that. But I do see somehow Tiffany retaining somehow. I'm not entirely sure how. For the U.S. title, you have L.A. Knight versus Jacob Fatu. Now, Jacob Fatu, this is going to make his first WrestleMania. It's going to be interesting because I don't know how LA Knight is going to survive this as far as Jacob Fatu, if he could put someone like Jacob Fatu down. So I do see Jacob Fatu winning. For the WWE Tag Team titles, you have the War Raiders versus the New Day. The War Raiders as a team, when they can go back and when they're on the same page, they are great. With this new version of New Day, it's one of those things where I don't know how they're going to go up against the War Raiders. So I do see the War Raiders retaining. The next one is Naomi versus Jade. Now, this one in particular has gotten very personal. So let's rewind. So back in November or early December, this was right around Survivor Series of last year, Jade Cargill was found unresponsive on top of a car. And nobody really knew what happened. Fast forward to, it was either the Rumble or going into Elimination Chamber. Nick Aldis, the general manager of SmackDown, showed Bianca and Naomi, it was like a side view of it, and in the corner you could see Liv Morgan and Raquel, I don't know why I said Raquel, walking off. Now, it sort of looked like they were going to go into the building as the ambulance was right there. I don't know if... And then, Bianca's like, well, I knew it. And as you can see, Naomi looking into the picture and stuff. So, then that's what that scene from Elimination Chamber for the women's match all started. And then a few weeks ago on SmackDown, they had that infamous segment with Naomi versus Jade and Bianca Belair. As Bianca was overwhelmed as she was going into a title match versus Io Sky, which I will get to. And so she was trying, and then Naomi was like calling Jade a selfish bitch and all of this other stuff. And then on SmackDown this past week, this was the first time you got to see a good heel promo by Naomi, where she had like caution tape type earrings and stuff like that. So this is going to be interesting. As far as who wins, I'm not entirely sure at this point. If I had to guess, Jade. The next one is Rey Mysterio versus El Grande Americano, which first of all sounds like a coffee. But this one has been interesting because a lot of people thought it was Shorty G in a mask. And it turned out not to be him. So if I had to guess who wins, with the somewhat push he's been getting, I do say El Grande Americano. Now, for WrestleMania Sunday, we also do know it's going to be Cody Rhodes versus John Cena to headline WrestleMania Sunday. This one has been interesting because this goes back to the Elimination Chamber, where after Cena won, he was about to leave and go to the back when Cody's music hit. And so, Cena and Cody Rhodes were talking. They shook hands. And so then you heard The Rock's music hit. And so he came out with Travis Scott. And and this was on that whole give me your soul stuff. And so this is also in there. This was the Cody's "Hey Rock, go F yourself" line comes from. So as Cena was hugging Cody, The Rock did like a slit of the throat. Cena's face changed. It was like stone, and then he basically hit Cody in the balls, and then hit him with his title belt and a watch and stuff like that. And then it really wasn't until a few weeks after that which is where we started getting the answers to why this happened. And Cena talked about, the invisible joke and how he became a meme and all this other stuff. If you have Netflix, I would highly suggest you go watch the opening for the European tour Raw's. It really wasn't until the last one, though, which is where it really got good as far as, why. And they mentioned, like, The Rock and all this other stuff. And it was one of those things where you got to see why it changed because, he talked about how, when he would come out, the arena would go, "Let's go Cena, Cena sucks." And then, or when his music would hit, it would be a loud boo and all this other stuff. And it was rather interesting to see and hear. So, if I had to guess at this point, I do see Cody Rhodes retaining. The next one for the women's world title, you have Io Sky versus Bianca Belair versus Rhea Ripley. Now, this one has been interesting because at the time Rhea Ripley was champion, and I think, and so they kept having, so when Bianca Belair won, she could choose who she wanted to face. So it was announced that the following week it was going to be Io Sky versus Rhea Ripley. And so Bianca Belair came out to look to see who she was going to wrestle at WrestleMania. And so after some stuff that should have caused the DQ, Rhea said to Bianca, "See you at WrestleMania." Io turned it around, and Hurricane Rana Rhea, then Io did her moonsault to win, and became the new WWE Women's World Champ. And then from there, Rhea got mad and essentially was throwing a hissy fit week after week after week. It was basically like, you're the, and she referring to Bianca in this situation, you were the reason why I lost, and you were cheering on Io, and all this other stuff in between. So it's gotten very involved. Both have pushed Io out of the way numerous times, like she's an afterthought or the third wheel of this story. And I do think that is going to be their demise at WrestleMania, because the thing I do see happening is Rhea and Bianca butting heads at and ignoring Io, who is the champion, mind you. And it really wasn't until this past Raw, or the Raw before that, where it was made official a triple threat, because it originally was supposed to be Bianca versus Io. So it's going to be an interesting thing here and there. If I had to guess as of now, I do see Io retaining. Next, for the IC title, you have Braun Breaker, who is the champion, versus Penta, versus Finn Balor, versus Dominic Mysterio. Okay, where do I even begin? Okay, Braun Breaker has beaten most of the people in the IC title. But then you also have Penta, who just came in January or early February. No, he came in January. He came on the second Raw on Netflix. And so he's been in this stuff not only with Braun Breaker, and somewhat with Finn Balor, and I don't remember anything with Dominic Mysterio, but he's also been in it with Tiffany's boyfriend, as well as another guy. I'm sorry, I can't think of his name. So it's been kind of like a 5-way type thing. But it's mostly, and just recently, it's been, Finn's gotten mad that he's not going to be on the WrestleMania card. And so Liv Morgan, essentially got Finn and Dom on the card and all this other stuff. So, and with this being Penta's first official WrestleMania, I could see Penta becoming champion. For the women's tag team titles, you have Liv and Raquel versus Lyra, Valkyria, and Bayley. Okay. Putting aside the makeshift tag team of Lyra and Bayley, the problem with the women's tag title scene essentially is there is not many actual teams. You have Kaden and Katana, the Party Girls. You have PFC, and there may be another one in there. Most of the others have been makeshift tag teams, like Natalia and Maxine Dupree, and Lyra and Bailey, and then all this other stuff. And it's one of those, in my opinion, where they should have given an actual tag team that spot, like the Party Girls or PFC or somebody like that, compared to Lyra and Bailey. Because the problem I have with this is Lyra is the Women's Intercontinental Champion, and that is not on the card as of now, nor is it on SmackDown. There could possibly be something with that on the Raw after Mania, but it's one of those situations where I don't agree with it, but it's there. But I do see Liv and Raquel retaining through something, and maybe we're going to get something with Alexa and the Wyatts for Liv and Raquel. I don't know at this point. Next for this is a Sin City Street Fight, Drew McIntyre versus Damian Priest. Now, this is going back to the European tour where, Drew and Damian were going at it. And on, I think it was either the second to last or the last SmackDown of the European tour, Damian essentially, I forgot the name of it, but had Drew fall on a windshield, and a piece of glass got into Drew McIntyre's eye, so he wore an eye patch like a pirate. And so it was going back and forth about it. So it was made official for WrestleMania. Next one is AJ Styles versus Logan Paul. Now, this one in particular sounds like, on paper, it's going to be a one-sided ordeal. Because you have AJ Styles, who's been in the wrestling industry for over 20 years, I believe it is, or something in that ballpark. And then you have Logan Paul, who's only been in wrestling and WWE for 2 or 3 years now. So on paper, it should be a one-sided ordeal. But if you take away certain aspects of it, it's going to be an interesting match. So, as much as it's going to kill me to say this, I do see Logan Paul winning. And the last one has a question mark to it. And that is Randy Orton versus Solo Sikoa. Now, this one in particular is a weird one because originally it was supposed to be Randy Orton versus Kevin Owens. But on SmackDown 2 weeks ago, it was announced that he's having neck surgery. And the timetable for recovery right now is unknown. They're saying he could possibly miss WrestleMania next year. So, and this put Randy in a very bad situation. So, and Randy wasn't sure. He got mad and RKO'd Nick Aldis. And so on SmackDown this past week, Solo was basically say like quit whining and complaining and all that stuff. So it was made official for WrestleMania, I think. Randy Orton versus Solo Sikoa. So as you can see, oh, so as you can see, both nights have around 6 to 7 matches. So it's going to be an interesting pay-per-view after all.